Alrighty, welcome back to The Devil in Detail, the Grendel Reread Podcast. I'm Eli.
I'm Ben. It's our 117th episode, and we're super excited to have Matt and Brennan with us to talk about Devil by the Deed Master Edition. Welcome, Wagners.
Welcome, Wagners.
Hot off the presses.
Yes. We are so excited to have our copies in hand finally and to have poured over their contents endlessly, comparing, contrasting, and seeing what stayed and what went.
Yeah.
So before we get into it, guys, let's get a little of the old plugs out of the way. I know we're all super busy. Brennan, what you been working on, man, since we last saw you 15 episodes ago?
Oh, yeah, it's been a while since we spoke, yeah. I just wrapped up a cool Kickstarter with James Robinson and Jeff Johnson. That's a fantasy series that we're really stoked about. It's called Rogue's Kingdom. I'm also, of course, doing more Grendel work. That has yet to be announced, but
it's been announced. It just hasn't been promoted really yet.
Oh, okay, so it's the sequel to Devil's Odyssey, and
Devil's Crucible, which will be 3 4-issue series, each with a subtitle. So Devil's Crucible Defiance, Devil's Crucible Sedition, and Devil's Crucible Necrotic.
That stuff.
He's coloring that.
I'm working on that stuff.
And it looks
working
awesome.
on that stuff. I also just wrapped up a fun project with the last podcast on the left guys, who I listen to and adore religiously. So that was a lot of fun because it explored some really cool punk rock roots. And of course, I'm writing and coloring St. John, a series for Dark Horse that is very near and dear to my heart as well, because it places Portland as its center stage for the titular hero. So that's what I'm working on.
That's it, with Portland Gear, in association with Portland Gear, yes.
When is issue 2 of that coming out, Brennan? January, I think I saw.
In January, yeah. It's a seasonal book, so it comes out, and the 4 issues that we have are seasonal in staging too. So the first one's in fall, second one's winter, third is spring, and the fourth one culminates in summer with the Pride Parade that happens every year in Portland. So
yeah, very much exemplifies Portland. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've set it up to release very, appropriately, sort of right in the midst of each of those time periods.
Nice.
That's one of my favorite things about your work is that it's structured, just like Devil Crucible has that very specific structure. This release structure helps you get into the experience of having the book and the thoughtfulness that you guys put into it. Thank you.
Fruit didn't fall far from the tree, man.
And
yeah,
Matt,
I learned everything I know from this guy. So
exactly. And Matt,
we can actually talk about what he was hinting at there. So in the it's in the 4th issue of last podcast's comic book, Last Comic Book on the Left. Brent's a huge fan of last podcast and got me into it too. But through that, I discovered the main researcher and author of the show is Marcus Parks. And he and his wife, Carolina Hidalgo, do a separate podcast called No Dogs in Space, which is all about music. And it's a deep dive into all my favorite bands. So Velvet Underground, Iggy and the Stooges, the Ramones, Patti Smith, The Damned, The Replacements. It's just like the soundtrack of my entire fucking career, right? So I sent them a hey, kudos, you guys. I love this show email. And I knew from listening to both that and last pod that, they knew Marcus knows comics. So he responded back and knew my work and wanted to know if I wanted to collaborate on something, a story he wanted to write for Last Comic Book on the Left. And it was a story about who killed Nancy Spungen. So it's all about Sid and Nancy. And it was originally slated to be 11 pages, but I kind of stepped in and said, dude, this is way overwritten. We need to stretch this out to 20 pages. So I kind of rearranged things to be 20 pages. And Brennan just wrapped up the colors. It looks terrific. We're both really happy with it.
So yeah, 20 pages. It's basically a full issue of comics.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
But these come out in kind of like trades with a few different stories. I'm looking at.
Yes, correct. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. It will be available.
But it hit me just at a time when I was, deep in Grendel and deep in Dracula, and it was just like, oh, here's this little side street I can wander down for a while and kind of recharge my batteries in a whole different way. It's nothing like anything you've seen from me in quite a while, maybe ever. It's all historical. There's nothing fantastical about it. There's no detectives or superheroes or anything. And it's neat because Marcus does his research really well. So it's populated with a ton of the people from that era, a lot of obscure characters from the early punk era. And so I had to research all of them and make sure they looked like who they were supposed to look like, you know. So it was a real neat project to work on, I gotta say. And of course,
Yeah,
as you guys both probably know, I've almost never worked with other writers in my career, you know. I think about 5 or 6 times over the entire course of my career. So that too was a neat little aside. I hadn't done it in so long that it's just utilizing different creative muscles, you know.
And I will say, as a fan and a peer, I think it's some of the coolest work I've seen him do. Definitely some of the raunchiest work.
Oh, it's raunchy as balls, man.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You've rarely, certainly not really ever done like some historically based or even based in the truth, other than or the real life, other than chicken parmesan comic.
Yeah, you're right. Comic book chef. Yeah,
we love fiction in this house.
So, Bren, you're on this Sid Nancy story. Is it?
He colored it. Yes, he just wrapped up the colors. Yeah,
a limited palette, just like this one. I think the promo image we saw was very desaturated.
Yeah, it's almost like Devil by the Deed, but instead of black, white, and red, it's like sepia and pink and yellow.
Yeah, which is neat because it gives it a kind of historical flair, and yet it feels garish and grimy all at the same time. You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like the dingy New York streets of the time.
Yeah, with this neon pink and this neon yellow, you know.
Yeah, that's definitely what I was going for. The
which of course are two of the colors on the cover of Nevermind the Bollocks, the Sex Pistols one and only album, you know.
Gotcha.
So.
Nice.
Yep. And I referenced that, and also that I think the poster art or the DVD art or whatever for the Sid and Nancy film, the Alex Cox film, also had like a yellow and pink sort of insert that I really loved. I love that sort of like brash, just coloring. So I took from that. But after I colored the first page of that, I decided the whole thing's just going to be that, you know?
And it really works, yeah.
And it does really work, yeah.
So aside from that, of course, I just wrapped up a kind of very visible Kickstarter campaign with my brother in arms, Kelly Jones, on this great big epic Dracula project we have just started. Not just started. We actually, the first volume is all completed, and the Kickstarter campaign wrapped. We're actually about halfway through the second book. So we're shooting to get one of these out per year. Each one of them will be launched as a Kickstarter. Again, the first one proved to be very successful. The feedback we got from people was just overwhelming. The one I love to brag about is when we first announced it on Twitter, I got a response on Twitter, excuse me, X,
never,
from a fellow named Leslie Klinger, who is acknowledged as one of the world's foremost Dracula scholars. He's written annotated versions of the complete Sherlock Holmes, Jekyll and Hyde, Frankenstein, and a big, very extensively researched and annotated version of Dracula. And he said, "Oh, this is a very exciting project, etc." So I contacted him off of Twitter, and I said, "Oh, Les, I'm a giant fan. I have 4 of your books, and we would love to send you the digital files and have you take a look. And if you want to give us a quote or a blurb, that would be great. And if you don't, that's cool. We would just love to share it with you." And so he sent us this just glowing quote. So we just felt like we got an A+ from the Dracula professor.
That's amazing.
So that was great. And then, as Brennan said, we're working on Devil's Crucible. Again, I have the first 2, Devil's Crucible Defiance and Devil's Crucible Sedition, all completed on my end. So that's 8 issues in the can out of 12.
Yes.
Just started. I'm about halfway through penciling the first one of the 3rd series, Necrotic.
Any idea when that's
a lot of cool surprises? Everybody's gonna love this one, believe me.
Any idea?
And a lot of throaty vampire shit.
Yeah, you guys are gonna
Return to the Vampires. Yes.
Yeah, the Return to the Vampires.
Any idea when it's coming out? Next year? Year after?
I think it's June. Does that sound right, Brennan?
June.
What did Philip tell you?
Yeah, it all lands on the colorist, doesn't it? Because whenever I can get it done, and the letterer, of course, turns this shit around in like a week and a half or whatever. But it all lands on me. So yeah, the June sounds about right. Maybe it's either
June, July, or August. So cool. summer of this coming year.
I heard summer.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then it should be, you know, monthly or every month and a half.
It'll be monthly per 4 issues, and then I think it skips, I think 2 months in between each one. So 4 issues, 2 months, 4 issues, 2 months, 4 issues.
Nice.
Just get a little breathing room in between the each series, you know.
Exactly. A little edgier seats action between what's going to happen. Okay, awesome. And then any
they do
plans,
end that way. They do end that way, both of them. Yeah.
Of course. Yes. And then of course the is the third one left open as well. We can't end this story of crime, or I guess you can't. We can't.
Yeah,
talk.
somebody on Facebook said, "Is this going to be the final story arc?" And I just commented, "The devil never dies."
Exactly. I never read that. Because you could just go forward. I mean, is there any plans to go back to anyone else, or?
You know, I don't know. The idea for so this is a perfect segue into talking about the Masters Edition.
For sure.
The idea for the Masters Edition came to me as a result of you know, directly piggybacking off what was to be the Netflix show.
Yes.
The ill-fated Netflix show, because Dark Horse was putting the omnibuses back into print at full comic book size. And if somebody really liked the show, my thought was if somebody really liked the show and was coming to a bookstore to find more Grendel, you know, those 600-page omnibuses might be intimidating, right?
Yeah.
And it was the 40th anniversary of the character. And I thought I need to somehow retell the story of Hunter Rose, because that was the source material for the show. And when I started looking at the original Devil by the Deed, since it was originally serialized in the back pages of Mage, the Hero Discovered, it was only done at 4 pages per installment. So it's only 37 pages long. And I got to say, that even shocked me when I looked at it again after all these years. I was like, wow, this seminal storyline, which of course I had expanded on many times over the years in Black, White, and Red, Red, White, and Black, and Behold the Devil, and Batman versus Grendel. The fact that, you know, this very seminal storyline and the legacy it spawned was only 37 pages long really just kind of shocked me, you know. So I said to Dark Horse, you know, here's my idea, man. Let me, you know, imagine it's, you know, the Beatles going back and recording one of their best albums, you know, after 40 years, you know, that might be a shitty idea, but, but I think I can make this really cool, and we can expand it out. It'll be all new artwork and utilizing the same storytelling techniques, using the blocks of text as if you are reading Christine Sparr's historical account of Hunter Rose. And the difference is I will be using similar design motifs, similar narrative motifs, but I'll be approaching it at age 60 as opposed to 27 or whatever I was when I did it the first time.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think I have a better handle on my craft by this point. So
absolutely.
So that's how that all came about. And whether we take that approach to other examples in the ongoing mythos, who can say? But
and I will say, Pop, you pointed out the other day, it's sort of like and this is a strange analogy, but it's sort of like Taylor Swift going back
yes,
and re-recording all of her stuff now that she's independent of the shitty producers she worked with.
You guys know this? I only found this out recently.
Yeah,
she has been systematically re-recording all her old material to say fuck you to the guys that own the music rights, you know.
That's a great idea.
I know, yeah. I got that much interest in Taylor Swift, but I thought, damn girl, that's pretty smart, you know.
Between the two of us, we couldn't sing you a single song, but that is very impressive, like ownership of your own material, you know.
There is, yep.
Agreed.
Well, the coolest thing here is that you didn't have to reinvent the wheel, that the foundational skeleton is still very much
I wanted to maintain that, you know. I didn't want to change it too much. And of course, there's certain moments and certain images that retain a lot of their original flair, but again, just drawn by me now as opposed to drawn by me then, you know.
Yes. I was kind of wondering, like, it seemed, of course, like you incorporated, like you said, Black, White, and Red, Behold the Devil, but is there anything like new that you put in there, maybe because you felt like, oh, this has been like eating at me for 30 years?
Sure. Well, a couple of things. Specifically, I was trying to reference the TV show a bit. So, for instance, Teddy Ciccone, the crime boss that Grendel originally hires on to as an assassin and later takes over his entire operation. I drew him to look more like the guy that played him in the show, actor named Eric Palladino.
Right.
Additionally, there's a whole subplot with a Chechen mob. This this mobster and his two sons, and they're all just horrible people. So I put in a short sequence featuring them in this, again, to kind of reference the show,
And like when he first puts on the mask here, it's like a fencing mask, and I feel like I saw like a photo of that, something from the show.
That's actually from the David Mack story in Black White.
That's right.
He had that, and it just made sense to me, to do that. There's a sequence in the TV show that kind of utilizes that, not as specifically as what we did. Additionally, as I was going through redoing it, about halfway through, I thought, God damn, this story is really white. And so I decided to throw in the little bit where he interacts with the gangs, the upcoming criminal element in Harlem.
Yeah, I kind of thought that went in with the Jim Mahfood story too, where
it has echoes of it. Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, definitely.
Additionally,
I will say I pulled up, in case we want to reference those, I pulled that and the Chechen pages coincidentally up onto my Photoshop if ever we want to screen share and kind of show what that looks like, sort of a little before.
Sure, yeah. Can we do that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, whenever we want.
I mean, what better time than now? Yeah.
Okay, let me make sure it just works here.
The effect of reading especially the Chechen sequence, which went into great and grisly detail, not having seen the Netflix show, was that, oh, hey, for the next anthology series, here's material to mine.
Oh, yeah.
Is that working? You guys see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it. Yep. Or I can.
Okay, yeah. So here's that Chechen page, which I loved working on this sequence. I thought it was a lot of fun. Pull you guys up here so I can. There we go. I can show you a little before now. So here's the scans. Here's the dirty scans, so you can see all the blue line. Even there's some blue line.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, these guys, they just have a lot of character, don't they? I love that upside down American flag.
Yeah.
The sort of the tracksuit that he's wearing.
Yeah. The liver spots.
The liver spots, exactly. Pop gave a really nice opportunity for me to inject red into a lot of this. There's no page that doesn't scream for an opportunity for red as a
narrative element.
Yeah, a narrative element, something to draw your eye. Here in the top panel, it's not only the clothing they're wearing, but I'm using a little bit of it on the skin tone, so you can see that his liver spots, Eli, and his nose, they're all like a little ruddy. And then in something like this little inset panel, the red of inside their base of operation is casting that light on Hunter as he's hanging outside. And then of course the blood, lots of blood.
Oh yes. And hey, the red squares that were so
well, that was another thing in the original. Those little red squares are all over the fucking place.
I love
that.
And
I was just like, okay, I have to acknowledge that those were there, but I'm gonna really yank the chain on that and rein it in. So they only act as little border accents for the captions in this case. So
got it. Yes.
And then also the page he was just talking about, the page where the classic Grendel is pretty white, devoid of like any black people whatsoever. Yeah. So it was really fun to do those. It's not very many pages, Pop. It's like 4 pages, something like that, that features sort of the Harlem hoods. And I just love this page here on the left where we get like a bunch of graffiti and Grendel literally pounding it with with some local hoods. It's just awesome.
Yeah. And this page on the right looks like the Kamiko Black Book art that you did.
The Kamiko Black Book, and also one of the black, white, and red covers. That's an image I've used several times. It's an iconic image. I figured, why not do it again?
It's on the lunchbox, right?
No,
I'm thinking of a different image.
Yeah, he's squatting on the lunchbox. Yep.
Oh yeah.
Brennan, was your process similar to these? Did you feel any like an added sense of responsibility, like going back to this, what do I call it in my notes here? This magnum opus of your dad's, like going back and trying to make sure you did it right or anything, or you're so used to working?
Yeah, that's a good question. The fun thing about this was that I had a lot of time with this. This is the first graphic novel that I've colored that didn't come out monthly.
Wasn't serialized.
Yeah, it wasn't serialized. So it and we've been sitting on this. I wrapped this up like a year and a half ago. So it's crazy to be talking about it now. It's been so long. But that gave me a lot of room for error and a lot of room to explore and to experiment. And yeah, I was definitely trying to reference the black, white, and red stuff before, but also I was trying to do what I do normally on his work, just with this limited palette. And again, I did that with the Sid and Nancy story that we just did. But here you can see there's a lot of texture added. Just on this left page alone, you can see there's a lot of texture added.
Oh, cool.
There's a lot of rendering added. There's a lot of watercolor brush used. So it's not by any means a lesser amount of work. I applied the same amount of rendering and the same amount of time and effort that I would to any of his stuff that has a full color spectrum, but just with the limited palette here, which is a lot of fun. And honestly, going forward, I might do that more on his work.
Flip back to the black and whites on this.
Yeah,
page.
for sure.
I love what he did on the clouds on the right hand one there.
Yeah.
Now go to the color one.
Oh yeah, like fully knocking your lines out, and
Yep. Mm-hmm.
so cool.
And you can see I did a lot of KO there as well on the left page, Eli, with the graffiti, picking and choosing.
So it seems layered. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Matt, you did all this work. You didn't do any digital. Sorry, Ben.
No, yeah, I don't do anything digital, dude.
Yeah.
I'm old school.
Yeah. You don't. Do you mess with an iPad at all, or are you kind of?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really cool to see places where the rendering is being done in cooperation, like where you can see the wash.
Yeah, it was like everything I did
in.
rendering wise. Brennan just kicked it down the road a little bit farther.
That was really clear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ben, that's a nice thing to point out there, is that and that's the case with almost every project I do. When I work on Dan Scotty's line art with St. John, or anytime I work on any artist with Jeff on Rogue's Kingdom or anything that I'm working on, I'm trying to sort of match the energy of the mark making going on in the ink stage. And I think that's really critical for the color art to align well with the line art, is like, you're trying to match that energy. You're not trying to overwhelm it or underwhelm it. There's a certain amount of tete-a-tete that you can achieve if you're making the same sort of marks. I brought up the last page that I brought up here to show you an example of that, is this page, this spread that also has a lot added to it, but not in a way that detracts from it. In the bottom right panel, you can see I have like a light effect going on in Grand Central here. Yeah. These two assassins have entered.
Yeah, this is a good thing to talk about too, as far as adding things. This was a sequence I added as a nod to The Godfather. This is a sequence from the actual novel when Vito starts to become super powerful. Al Capone sends 2 hitmen to New York to take him out. And Luca Brasi finds out about them, meets them at the train station, takes them prisoner, takes them to an unknown location, chains them both up, and hacks one of them to death with an axe. Hacks him to death with an axe. And the other one dies of a heart attack watching it.
Oh my God.
So I was like, yeah, that's a pretty good Godfather detail most people don't know. So I'm gonna throw in my little version of that here.
This Grand Central panel is like Schindler's List with the red coat.
Mm-hmm.
That's my name.
Yes. Yeah. Good comparison there, Ben. Yeah. And you can see too, the panel before it, I chose to make them all red. So like they really pop in that one panel. Yeah. Just helps to balance. Anytime I was working on these pages, and honestly, anytime I work on his stuff nowadays, I will conjoin the 2 pages that face each other, because I want there to be a balance color-wise and contrast-wise across the spread. So that's what I was aiming to achieve here with not only this spread, but with the whole book.
Matt, do you design your spreads the same way at the same
Yep.
time?
Always.
Yeah.
2 pages at a time, so they're facing each other. And in fact, when I'm laying out the second one, when I'm breaking it down into panels, I butt it up against the other one to make sure that the lines aren't tangented. They don't.
Yeah.
The lines from this panel don't, unless I want them to, but generally I don't. So it has to not duplicate the layout of the page before it.
Let me go back to one of the questions I asked before. Was there anything from the first one that was nagging at you, Matt? Like little things, or like a hole here or something like that you were like, this must be remedied now, or like
something you have to correct.
Here's a good one. This is from you guys actually. Ben had commented on some much earlier episode about how Arjun could smell Hunter. So I said, okay, Hunter distinctly uses 2 different colognes. When he's friendly, he smells one way. When he's Hunter, he smells another way.
There's another little one.
He smells strongly as Hunter, some kind of strong cologne, and just no cologne at all as Grendel.
There was another one I noticed too that was like a little thing like that, was when like a car comes up mysteriously, but actually he calls it from the fork or something like that. He had like a exactly. Yeah. I love those things, and I liked bringing in Farrell Dalrymple's story there, where he goes to Bernie Jean's house too. That's
in the original Black and White and Red series, or the original Black and White series.
In the original Devil by the Deep.
Yep. No, the one before. You see it happen in there.
In the one before,
it's page right where you just had it open there, dude.
I did?
Yep.
Oh yeah, right here.
Like he knows it so well.
Yeah, so several pages, like the page after that.
Oh yeah, okay. So here he's walking away.
Yeah, so no, go back. The page on your left at the bottom there, you see the guy crouched down before his video monitor there.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but what I did explain was it said it commented on he didn't torture Bernie, that assumption comes from the way he chose to leave the remains. Well, I finally described the way he left the remains.
Yes.
Yes. With his video camera dangling from his testicles.
From his dick, from his testicles. Yeah. Oh, that was amazing.
The composition of this panel with the camcorder, where it's pointing out the window and the lights outside are white. Bren, that was really like, there's a number of places here where the color very like directly speaks to visual hierarchy, and this was one of my absolute favorites.
There's also a real disturbing thing on that page. If Eli, do you have that there in the Master's Edition?
Yeah, what page is that, Ben? Or you have it there? There's no.
They're
page.
Not numbered, but Stacy's been undressed. Is that?
It's technically page
undressed, which means Hunter had to redress her.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, technically page 36, 37, and Ben, like anytime it's a hard choice to like decide this whole panel is going to be red.
Yeah,
like if you see in the background there, Stacy's naked on the couch.
Yeah.
And Ben was referring to like the white of the lights outside the window. All of that is deliberate to like help sell the different environments, And
that one, he colored that page, and I said after he was done, he's like, "Oh wait, we got to make the guy's glasses white at the bottom, as if that's the fork reflecting in the glasses."
Yeah, all these diagonal lines really bounce you around with a lot of great energy. And
this is the one little detail that I love about that spread personally is the coloring on the right hand page there of when Hunter leaves Stacy against that swan statue. I used these like gray reds to make it seem like she is sort of on the outskirts of where that fire is happening. So like they're getting licked by that red light, but they're not fully lit by red. And there's a bunch of moments in this that are like my personal kind of little favorite things that I guess I'll take to the grave with me.
Yeah, in promotion, Brennan, you spent a lot of time talking about how you're able to manipulate the monochrome to almost look like there's other colors, and this was the page, especially with the maroons and the ivy and that swan.
He pulls that off a lot in this book.
Yeah, I mean the trees look green. Amazingly.
And I think that's
your eye is filling in color that isn't there.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a juxtaposition thing, right? Like gray next to red looks green to your eye. because if there's only reds and grays going on, the grays are always the cooler, greener sort of color to your eye, because your eye wants to associate stuff, and it wants to say like, oh, those leaves are cooler, they're green or whatever. So and I used a lot of browns and pinks in this that I think weren't present, unless I'm wrong, Pop, weren't quite present in the black, white, and red stuff, right?
Black, white, and red stuff was all flat for the most part. There was a few instances like Dan Brereton painted his and
Right.
added some red afterwards, so that gave a similar effect to what you're talking about there. But very, very, very few. Generally flat color.
Yeah, and then there was even the black, white, and red version of Devil by the Deed too.
That too,
That
flat
was
color.
complete. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So good.
Well,
But I
one of
also,
my
it
favorite-
just gave me the chance to open things up, specifically the final sequence where, Stacy discovers who he is and then starts to plot his downfall. And here was another one I changed, was the in the original, he has his safe hidden kind of inside and behind his aquarium,
Yeah.
Originally, I had him just kind of folding that section down, and then I changed it to it just kind of sinks down into the cabinet beneath it.
Yes, we love that.
Yeah,
oh
it
man,
really-
When she pushes a secret button on Moby Dick.
the original really begged for a sequence where Stacy struggles to and smashes the fish tank on the ground.
Yeah, I figured that just wouldn't work that well. That's she would fuck that up somehow. But
I love how that whole
button
aquarium,
and the mechanism takes it down, then all good.
I love how that whole aquarium sequence is spread across like 4 pages, and you get a really nice comprehension of like the space going on.
Yeah, where it's all like those 2 pages are squeezed into half a page in the original.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there was a moment in reading it where I was like, oh, I'm 30 pages into this book and I'm on page 3 of the original one.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
everything
exactly.
gets
Yeah.
really expanded, and everyone's
it just felt having that sort of room just felt very freeing, and very, very like I can do anything here, It's really, but then of course, you get about 60 pages in and you're like, oh shit, I'm halfway done. I got to figure out how the rest of this lays out, I got to make sure it's all gonna fit.
was there anything you left out, or
No,
I mean, it's
no,
it's pretty. Yeah, you had full reign pretty much.
Yeah.
I loved that it did give more story to Stacy, because after the reread for the podcast, I was taken by how much I liked her character so much more than the first time I read it, and there's so much more to her now. Almost like she is the most important character. And this spread too, which was one of my favorites in the original, you kind of basically redid,
just recreated it.
Yeah.
I like several pages later where she's gonna finally enact her plan, and she's looking in the mirror and she imagines herself as a Power Ranger.
Oh yeah.
Is that was a good moment. Yeah. She considers herself and if you'll notice, she's holding out her hand to do a fist bump, and the Ranger is not reciprocating.
Yeah.
How much, because I feel like we don't get a ton about her in other places. So did this come from just you wanting to talk more about her, or am I forgetting?
Yeah, I mean, I had the space now,
Yeah, exactly.
And of course, we via the Black, White, and Red, White, and Black, and of course, Diana's and Tim's Devil Child, that fleshed out the character quite a bit too. So
yeah, and you even included the cat, the like Grendel cat that we
Grendel
see
cat,
yeah.
Yep, Grendel cat makes an appearance. I really love the panel with her, or maybe it's 2 panels. What is it? Let me see. Yeah, it's 2 panels. Her and her, or it's 3 panels. Her and her babysitter. She stabs a cake, and then is like on a walk with her babysitter, who kind of looks like my mom, and then is like, and then the babysitter's like chucked into the Hudson Bay. Like I just love that. Like she's not far removed from Hunter, is she? Like the violence has trickled down generations.
And even the illusion saying that she's like a reincarnation
that's the whole point
of
there.
Jocasta.
She looks at herself in the mirror and thinks she's heroic, but she's not. She's she's very deviously causing 2 creatures to like thrash and murder and destroy each other.
Yeah, she's staging a murder, and it's not. It's
at a very young age.
Not,
Similarly, those last 2 pages where we find out what happens to her, that too originally is all crowded into 1 page on the original.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the scene where the psychiatrist husband rapes her on their wedding night. I said to Brandon, we need some blood on the sheets. And oh my God, he did it as this total just bloodbath. And at first I was like, that's too much. And then I thought, nah, it's Grendel. That's cool.
No, because the one in the Tim book is quite bloody as well.
Quite bloody, yeah.
Very,
Yep.
Yeah.
And even it's like the Grendel symbol at one point, isn't it? The blood.
Mhm.
It's the eyes that you see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess like, go ahead, Ben. Go ahead, Ben.
I was gonna say the one of my favorite changes is Christine's author photo changes in a way that's much more aligned with, I guess, your vision of Christine in hindsight.
Yeah. When I did it the
Yours.
first time, of course, I had not written the sequel yet. I
Right.
mean, I knew kind of where I wanted to take it somewhat, but of course, she was ill-defined at that point. But after having written Devil's Legacy and seen the Pander's Draw, the whole thing, yeah, she has more of a, as you said, gutsy, ballsy, however you want to call it, more of an aggressive stance.
Yeah. This is the character that you describe all the time when you talk about where she came from in real life and all that. In thinking about the ending here, when Christine is talking about the logs and getting the logs, there's this great subtext that, like, Hunter's true work as an author was writing this one book that only 2 people have read.
Yep.
And it'll drive you mad if you read it,
Yeah, like The King in
really,
Yellow.
really cool.
Yeah.
Or like
I based Christine physically on 2 women I had met at the time. One was an editor at Ballantine in New York City, and another one was just a friend of a friend that I had met on a trip to San Francisco. Both of them kind of had that short cropped 80s kind of hair, spiky 80s kind of hair, and both of them had a real urban ballsy chick kind of demeanor, so the when I drew her there in the first Devil by the Deed, she looked very much like the editor at Ballantine that I had met.
How come, or did you think about using like doing pinups at the end, like the other versions, or nah? That's like
I mean, at that stage, I was a young and up and coming guy. You want to kind of pad your nest with approval by these other hot shit artists.
Yeah.
At this point, again, it's called the Masters Edition. I'm the star on stage, and that's it.
Exactly.
Maybe give it 10 years and it'll have those.
Oh,
yeah,
when
do
it's
the
re-released.
expanded edition. Yeah,
Yeah.
add 30 pages of pinups, which
Yeah.
would be easy to do. Yep.
Mhm.
One of my favorite things that you expanded, like, with Growth in Hindsight, is talking about Hunter's arc in publishing and really giving every book release its own page to shine. And my favorite comments are like, in hindsight, Glee Club is incredibly menacing because it was written in Zen preparation to murder all these people.
Yep.
Loved it.
Yep. Now here's a little bit of trivia. I changed something from the Black, White, and Reds. If you go back and look, there's the one story with Cush Bradley. Is it Bradley? His editor.
My man.
Yeah, Ben
yep.
loves him.
And I named the 5 novels. I changed one of the novel titles when I did Behold the Devil. I gave a whole new title. In the original one in the Black, White, and Red, it's called, I think, Riptide Reflections.
Yeah.
And I changed that to Chanticleer Tears for the for Black,
and
White,
no
and Red.
mention of My Little Chickadee either, I feel.
Yeah, My Little Chickadee.
Oh yeah, like it's all spread.
Yep.
Yeah, there was an
Yeah, he writes that during the trial.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The reveal
And
of
that's
Chanticleer.
also one of my favorite parts as a reader and a fan. I love the expansion of Hunter as a writer.
Yeah.
It's sort of just briefly mentioned in the original. I feel, Pop. It's kind of this thing like, oh, by the way, he's a successful writer. That's why he's so rich.
The other cool thing was A getting to design some of the book covers. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And make them very book designy kind of looking. Like New York book design. The other one was to show what a just audacious, arrogant prick he is in the publishing world too. His publishers was like, oh no, you can't follow up with another book yet. We're still selling through the other one. Fuck you, I'm done. I'm writing. I'm publishing.
And a particular favorite of mine is the Time magazine cover on the.
Oh yeah, because that's meant to emulate the famous
Gatsby.
first edition of The Great Gatsby. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
And when I was coloring that, I was like, oh, it's gotta be dark at the top, light at the bottom, have those lights. I loved Gatsby when I was a kid. So
And it proves how big like Hunter Rose is as a person, because like we were referencing when we were just reading Batman, how it's 4 years later and his bones are like on display. This is like one of the biggest people in the world. It's like if Jim Morrison died and then everyone found out he was like the
serial
biggest
killer
leader,
yeah,
and like doing all this shit, and then that just goes to show that like, yes, this legend would continue forever. Like Jim Morrison is never going to die. And like that just makes it even more important, and why the true skull is as important as
Eli, I feel like you
becomes.
just came up with a great like pseudo serial killer alt universe thing where Jim Morrison actually was like a
Oh my God.
murderer.
I would love to write that.
When he sings "There's a Killer on the Road," he's talking about himself.
My favorite publishing arc moment is the release of Chanticleer Tears, which coincides with the very end of Behold the Devil, where he's holding court for 700 people, like standing and applauding for him. And it was
As that
I
guy's
found it,
corpse is still burning in his apartment.
yeah,
Probably.
like really like darkly humorous, where it's like, look at this psycho.
Yep.
He's great.
Yeah, that page was a lot of fun. That page and the subsequent page, which kind of like sums up the Behold the Devil story arc.
Yeah.
I also I showed what became of Liz, because she's such a dynamic character, and she ends up just so ruined, just so completely ruined.
Yeah, she gets a few more
I thought it was
beats.
important to show that in the midst of all this glitz and glamour, show the rotted husk of one of his victims that survived.
Yeah, smoking to the end, even though her lungs
Smoking
were ravaged.
while she's on oxygen.
One of my favorite added moments that's like the reflection of Batman and the Joker is Liz meeting on the rooftops with Argent, and it's talking about how she's, she doesn't approve of his methods. And then we get into like, they give Argent the room just to torture people if they can find anyone connected. And they talk about Argent on the telephone, which is all we ever wanted.
Yeah, at the end there's a lot of shots of people on telephones at the end.
That's where it all happens.
A factor of its time period. Brennan, as I was drawing it, Brennan's like, "That's weird." I was like, "But that's the way it was, man."
Yeah.
And they were
I pointed out how
pals
bizarre that was. That's why I made the pink sock so like identifiable, so you always know like, okay, it's Stacy on the phone disguising her voice.
I love that she had that stuffed animal too, that I think it was Jason Pearson's Black, White, and Red story.
Yep, that's where I took it from. Yep.
Yep. Nice. Yeah, that shows up.
If you notice at the end, she rips its head off.
Yeah,
that's right. Matt, do you have any like? Do you do
head off? And if you look above the bed, there's like a big apple as a heart that she's smeared a giant X across. I have to assume that's probably with the hot chocolate she just made for herself.
Yeah,
oh my God.
It almost looks like a Beatles reference to me.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, do you have reference for like these types of like Art Deco designs that you do that just comes out of here?
I was looking at it here and there, and I kept a few around but I just mixed it up. I didn't. Art Deco is, I will say, way more decorative than I did there. It is way more geometric usually.
Yeah.
And way more finicky than I'm doing. I'm doing a comic book version of that. I'm simplifying and making it bigger and bolder and making it a background element more than a forefront element.
And there are times where the visual music that it creates, especially when you bring like the go-go checks into it and the backgammon patterns, like you can hear it, playing out that like 80s neon noir jazz. Really cool.
You're right though, Pop. It's Art Deco usually when it's done is such a gaudy sort of like in your face kind of aesthetic. And
it's often there's
often
elements of it that are less geometric than you're imagining. There's often very wispy elements, lots of very stylized leaves and trees and stuff like that, which of course in an urban environment I didn't have much room for. But yeah, I was paring it all down to its big, bold, Sturm und Drang elements, keeping it loud, you know.
But it gets
just-
the idea.
I will say one of my
across.
favorite new pieces in this is because I had to recreate the 2-page spread where he fights Arjun again.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I was just looking. At that.
But I felt like I needed to add something to that. So I could either do it as a 4-page spread, and I didn't want to do that. So I just decided to, yep. So I just decided to, on the page before it, I decided I'm going to do just a real kick-ass portrait of where they're fighting. So almost a Mount Olympus, you know, where they're going up to meet each other to have their final battle, you know.
I truly still hold this as one of my favorite spreads of all time.
Yeah, and you know, if you look at the figures in those circles, I decided I couldn't exactly duplicate that, so I reduced them more to puppet shapes. You know, if you look, they're very geometric. They almost seem like puppets fighting each other rather than.
Yeah,
and that's, you know, they're the puppets in Stacy's manipulation. You know.
Yeah, they're marionettes. They're broken down into core, figure, and then limbs and head, basically.
And floppy extremities, you know, like a triangular feet and triangular hands and stuff like that. You know, like a marionette has.
exactly.
Funky Town.
Oh man.
And I here, I'll screen share one more time because I brought both those pages are nice share pages here. I brought those up to share. Those are some nice pages. I really focused on making those count and matter.
Yeah, and so watch before he switches back here. Take a look at that lightning bolt. Now the lightning bolt's pretty dynamic the way I did it, and boy, Brennan just added a whole lot to it there with that.
Yeah,
it just sizzles all the more, you know.
Lightsaber.
I find that a lot of the time, almost any time someone draws lightning or like fire or something, or blood splatter or anything that's kind of very organic, it needs a little extra. So you can see here I added extra lightning, like, you know, bolts to it. It has a little extra pieces coming off of it.
That one too. The sky turned out terrific. Just
so good.
The gathering storm clouds.
Yep, and this is a good example of how the brown, I think, and the pinks that I chose to like incorporate here really help, because they mimic and they help sing the praises of the red without distracting from the red. They're sort of complementary as opposed to taking the focus from. And then that next one was this guy. And that one was also, I felt like with both of these, I had to get them just right, you know?
Yeah. These are the like most epic.
Oh, wow.
There's like a lot of pressure there for me.
Yeah.
Not only as like his colorist, but as his son to like honor this and get it right.
Is that tape and airbrush in the background?
There's for the most part, instead of using an airbrush, Ben, I almost always use a big old like watercolory brush.
I think he was asking me, Bren. Yeah, it's airbrush. It's black. Black ink through an airbrush. Yeah.
You mean like here? These sort of like particles?
Yeah, the striation stuff. Yeah. This is
Mm-hmm.
another great place where the tandem rendering is apparent but subtle.
Greater than the sum of the parts.
Yeah, for sure. But you couldn't have put more werewolf cock in this book than that?
Oh man. Once I was like, oh God, he would have a dog dick. I'm just gonna show that all the time.
Yeah.
I think it adds to the fear that Stacy saw when he's crashing through the roof. And
I don't know if you noticed when he goes to visit her, he wears a loincloth.
I did notice that. Yes,
flap.
weird. Yeah. Oh
He's a
man.
little embarrassed.
Well, the way you describe her neurotic repulsion, it makes the machinations make more sense. Like it really, her need to sort of destroy them both.
Well, and the bit, this is a bit I added for this one, the bit where she starts pretending to have nightmares about Argent just to rile up Hunter's anger at him, you know.
Yeah.
There's a bit added where Hunter fucks with the police line, rings twice and then calls back immediately, so Argent always knows it's him.
Yep.
I really loved how
Again, these are just the joys of getting able to address it again, after all these years and brewing on it that long,
Yeah.
because it's a
It's-
historical account, the sense of having to come to terms with the supernatural has always been present in the story. It's one of my favorite parts about it is that mystery. And here you give Hunter a lot of opportunities to be like, oh, we are like linked uber being brothers, and maybe there really is something to this, or maybe she really is, or maybe she is Jocasta reincarnated. I don't know, but he's going to go with it. I like those expansions a lot.
And that too, the
wants
whole thing about he might think she's, or he at least sees the echo of Jocasta in her, and maybe she's Jocasta's reincarnation. That's so only hinted at it previously. I stated a little more distinctly here.
Or the scene
again,
where
it just made
she
sense
meets
after all
Argent.
these years.
The scene where she's very like pluckish in meeting Argent. Hi, I'm Stacy Palumbo. Nice to meet you. It's very like the big cuddly buddy bit makes, if you see it that way, it's like she was very precocious. Like she really did have.
Yeah, she's very precocious.
That brought people
I mean, it's
in.
the same. It's the same attitude she has when she meets Hunter, when he tracks her down in the in the library.
She's reading.
She's meeting a monster. So
She's reading Prince Caspian.
Yeah, she's reading Prince Caspian. Yeah.
In volume 1, they play literary games with James Barrie, which I think is so fitting for a number of reasons. But I was curious why this changed to C.S. Lewis, or if that book held any that I don't remember.
I don't think it was. It wasn't that one specific. That one was just casual.
Yeah, and I like how
sometimes there's no plan.
Yeah.
Well, and C.S. Lewis is a lot more identifiable, right? So like, changing it to him makes it more
Freudian thing. Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar.
Yeah, for sure.
And I like how you called it out, like he named himself after Beowulf, like the beast, and like you straight say that
on purpose. Yeah,
right. Mm-hmm. Like I feel like a younger a creator would not try to call out that illusion. It's just like, no, I thought of this, but at this point you said it a million times that it comes from that book, and seeing it from the other way. So yeah, sick. And what about like returning to this like second person narrative style? Do you feel like it's freeing in a way to play that way and not have any like direct thought bubbles, word bubbles, or is it like,
well, I guess it's been a while since I had worked that way, but again, I did that in Devil's Reign as well to some degree, and I don't know, I've just written in so many different narrative voices that it's just what I do. So.
Yeah, that's what
I will
makes
say.
this...
Here's a little bit of a spoiler without being too spoilerish. In Devil's Crucible, the upcoming series, there's one narrator for the first series, and then we switch for the second series. So.
Ooh, interesting.
Excellent.
Susan Berrigan returns.
Oh, it's not what you're thinking, Eli.
Oh no.
This is a
Wits abound.
I have a very stupid production question, which is how do you make sure that you have the right size captions for the amount of text that's made?
Yeah, no, that's not a stupid question.
Oh, that's a good question.
So as I was writing it, so I pre-drew in all those caption boxes because they had to be there on the artwork. As I was writing it, I was taking the script, converting it in preview, and dropping it in manually to make it fit.
Nice.
And if it didn't fit, I would add or take away. And that generally worked. That generally made it fit pretty darn good. So, and occasionally, like after Dave Lanphier did his type treatment for everything, there were a few instances where I went, oh wait, this came up way too short. I need to add a sentence here. But there weren't that many of those, maybe 6 throughout the entire book. But that's a great question, Ben. I was very aware of that. Thanks. I can't overwrite this. I can't have it be bigger than the caption box. I can't have it be way smaller than the caption box. It has to fit the caption box pretty tightly. And that's the way I did it.
And you broke stuff up more too, like in the original one. There was more. Yep.
I was not. Ones. I didn't feel any compunction to stick to the way things had been broken up previously. Of course, I did hit I didn't want to completely rewrite it. It was still Christine's novel, or Christine's not novel, but Christine's nonfiction book about hunters. So I had to keep a certain amount of the verbiage the same. And, I would drop it into that box and I would see, okay, I got this much extra space. I'm going to fill that out with this many sentences, So
I did like that it began exactly the same too. That first paragraph or that first.
I
big
figured that was
box
a really
broke it
good
up
start. That's a really good start from the beginning. The first one, I couldn't improve on that, even after all these years.
Yeah.
How about that helpful Larry being obviously in love with Hunter, playing his violin in the offices?
That's from the show too.
Oh, damn! Wow. I was wondering how much of the show.
At one point, I had a Zoom meeting with the writers. Like, there were like 8 writers, and they were great. They were all really good. They were all really into it, and so we had just an opportunity for them to ask me questions. And one of them said, "So explain Larry to us." And my answer was, Larry's obviously in love with Hunter, but he would never act upon it. It's the jackal and the lion, But
man, has there been any?
It seemed obvious to me.
Has there been any movement on the old show there, or no? Those idiots.
Yeah, no, it's dead in the water.
Son of a bitch.
Very unfortunate.
Your treatment of Larry.
I feel like we should ultimately send these to a DVD.
We could do that. Eli, your eyes just like bulged out of your head there, like one of those squeaky toys.
Eli, I will say,
I need to change.
I fucking loved it. I think it's fantastic.
That's what I tell people, because everyone's like, "Oh, it must have sucked," and I'm like, "I don't think it did."
It didn't suck.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't suck. It's definitely very
just like the comic.
Netflixy.
It doesn't fit the traditional comic book tropes.
Yeah.
The guy that inherited the series, again, our showrunner told me at one point, if we would have been a year previous or a year later, we would have been golden.
Yeah.
We hit when Netflix went through all those problems and their stock tanked out the bottom, and they went through this huge managerial purge, and we lost the executive that was in charge of our project. The guy that inherited it, I keep referring it to when a new alpha lion comes into a pride, he kills all the cubs from the previous lion,
God.
Yeah.
He just from the beginning said, I don't get this show. Like, where's the superpowers? Where's the energy bolts? Where's the
He's heard of Batman, right?
Where's the moral lesson? Where's the moral lesson? And it was just like, you don't really need that every time.
Have you seen The Boys, or have you seen any of these other like?
Can you imagine this idiot executive? What a fucking idiot!
Oh my god! Wow.
What was the relief like when you got to do the 2 blank pages of excised Larry torn out?
Well, they went fast, put it that way. Brennan liked coloring those. They helped his schedule quite a lot.
Yeah, I thought that your treatment.
I don't know. It just that became such a when I did Behold the Devil, that became such a to my mind a hugely significant factor in Hunter's legend.
Yeah,
that they're this again. Christine talks about that this megalomaniacal, self-congratulating persona. What would cause him to rip out these pages and destroy them? And I thought, well, I have to include that then. We have to see that.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought the best way, was just to have 2 blank pages with these caption boxes.
In my head canon, that includes the Shadow and Batman crossovers in that
that's
section as well.
Yeah,
that's where.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's the treatment of Behold the Devil that sort of encapsulates and expands, and you get more into Ottoman and Sparks's dynamic and what was keeping them together and what they were holding from each other is great. The experience of reading this made me think that, first of all, congratulations, this is a fantastic new entry point,
absolutely,
into the series. But if you pair it with Behold the Devil, it's going to blow people's minds. So I'm looking forward to my first students who will have the chance to experience that.
I like that stuff. Yeah. And I like that stuff wasn't just like a chunk in the middle, that it was like seeded at the beginning, that Liz Sparks was like on the case and then kind of picked up all.
Well, that actually is from that's from the Black, White, and Red. But like before I did Behold the Devil, she's in the
Yeah.
Black, White, and Red series. It's the story
gets
drawn
one
by
story.
Cliff Chiang. She's
Oh.
the detective on the scene for his very first hit, and she's able to see through some of the the details that the other detectives are missing. Specifically, she figures out this one wound in the body would have to be 2 blades that went in and then carved around and pulled out like a plug of flesh just came out, you know.
God. I think I remember that now. I remember when we were going through it, we were like, there's a lot to remember here. There's so many ins and outs, so many stories. How much
long series, long epic. Yep.
did you need to do research, or is it all like up here?
No, you know what, Hunter? I have to do research with the rest of it, but Hunter kind of all sticks with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like even after all this Hunter lore, Pop, you could still write some lost Hunter entries. Like it's not
100%.
he's not his
I haven't shown every moment,
exploits.
but you know, I keep saying it gets tougher and tougher because he led a pretty short comet burning out kind of life, you know. So but of course you could take a day and stretch it into an eight issue series if you're a good storyteller, and I like to think I am. So yeah, I don't know if this is the last I'll ever come back.
Yeah, if he only lives
the point is Hunter's story doesn't change. This
Right.
there's a beginning, there's a middle, and the end, of course, is all wrought by Stacy, you know. But yeah, there's adventures in there we don't see. So
is there anyone that you think Hunter could cross over with? Because we're fresh off the Batman, and we were talking about it and trying to rank what we thought the best crossovers were of Grendel, and I thought the Shadow was like the tops because that was like your favorite character, and it seemed like you were super psyched to be in there.
After I did Batman Grendel, and of course it was a huge success at the time.
The second one, you mean, or
the first one?
The first one.
Sorry.
Okay, yeah.
Well, and then the second one as well. You know, the second one followed what was it, 2 years after? I can't remember how many years of that.
I can't remember either because we were trying to wonder, like, did Four Devils One Hell showing the hole in the True Skull, was that before? And then you explained
that was before.
Okay, that was before.
Yes, okay. I did that to explain it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Art wise, it feels like years after Pop. Like the difference in Grendel Batman 2 versus Grendel Batman 1.
Yeah, but that's just by design. I deliberately drew it.
I know. Yeah, but as a young guy,
it wasn't like I had just gotten
apart.
that different. It was like this has to look different. The Hunter Prime is nothing like the noirish aspects of Hunter. He's this giant action star, you know.
Yes.
But after the Batman Grendel crossovers, I got approached by so many people to do Grendel crossovers, you know, like pretty much any, you know, aside from the big image superstars, pretty much any hot indie character from those days you can imagine. Their creator approached me at some point to do a crossover with Grendel. And my thought was, you know, well, after Batman, where do you fucking go? You know, I can't climb up the ladder from there, you know. Until it came time to do the Shadow, and I was like, okay, but that's not climbing up the ladder, that's climbing sideways to a different time frame, you know. And and that's a character that meant a lot to me, and obviously inspired Batman himself. So
and inspired Grendel.
I don't in my mind I don't see doing any more crossovers with Hunter. I think
Hunter Dracula.
Nah, probably not.
It would have to be like a pre-Hunter Grendel versus Dracula.
With Dracula, I don't want to get too much into that because I don't want it to be House of Dracula and House of Frankenstein, the later periods of the Universal monsters riff. I don't want to be teaming up with other monsters. Dracula, to my mind, has to be singular. You know, he has to be the most important monster in the story. Yeah, the only one. You know,
you don't want it to become Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein or something. Yeah. That's super interesting.
After reading that crossover, the thing that is itching me the most, I think, is just Susan and Prime Paladin Squire buddy cop duo. Like,
well, so
years and years of shit.
When Greg Rucka and I did Past Prime, of course, at that point, Greg's star was not so big. You know, he was just up and coming, and we had originally intended to do 3 of those novels,
right?
And they would be called Past Prime, Present Prime, and Future Prime.
Oh,
and it would be 3 different stages of Hunter and Susan's relationship. Of course, in Batman Number 2, we find out that lasted for decades. She ultimately dies of old age. Against all odds, she dies of old age instead of on the battlefield. But yeah, there's a lot of stories to be told there yet. And boy, she's proved to be a popular character. Like anytime I have her show up, even briefly, like in the Devil's Odyssey, people fucking love it, man. They love Susan Miraga.
Yeah, butch lesbian with green hair in the future. Hell yeah! Like,
well, that Dave Cooper series you guys did, I think we must have talked about it in
Dave,
100.
Dave only rendered it. It was Pat McEwen who penciled worked out. He penciled it and he wrote it. Yeah. Dave only painted it. He only rendered it over Pat's pencils.
And that was for the Grendel Tales too.
Homecoming.
Oh yeah, Homecoming. Yeah.
Grendel Tales Homecoming. Yeah.
Oh man. Well,
So
I apologize to Pat
book,
if we didn't say that.
I gave Homecoming to a student last week as their first Grendel book, and they loved it.
Oh,
right.
Yeah, cold. Yeah, he was.
Well, Grendel's such a wide swath. You can kind of pick and choose this person's gonna like that version. This person's gonna like, raised Catholic, you'll like God and the Devil. Oh, your girlfriend dumped you, you'll like the devil inside. Oh,
that's perfect. Now, anything else you want to talk about, Ben, with Devil by the Deed, the Masters Edition?
No, Eli, you asked me if I had any questions, and I came up with a couple, thank goodness. But guys, you've outdone yourselves. Everything else is gravy. You've got a great roadmap for the next few years. It sounds like Dracula is rolling along phenomenally.
Yep.
So whatever comes after that is gravy. Before we know it, it'll be the 50th anniversary. I'll get my Susan stories finally.
Yeah.
When is that? What year is the anniversary? Do you have? It's like 80.
Well, last year was the 40th, so it was 82 when it first appeared. So it's 82 plus 50.
God, I'll be in my
33, 2033.
Damn.
2032.
That's when the Masters Edition of we can get all the creators back together to do short stories of their characters.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Yeah.
I feel like I'm constantly thinking of like new Grendel ideas. I thought of one the other night because in the Batman, it talks about how for like a super long time, Prime was like working on himself and making him better and doing these things. So just like way future, like Grendel. What did I name it? I was drawing it at the bar the other night, like Grendel Infinite or something like that, where he's just
Grendel
this like,
Infinite, yeah.
He's like the monolith from 2001, where he's, this supreme thing.
Well, when he comes back to Earth at the end of Devil's Odyssey, 500 years have passed. So things are a lot different than when he left.
Is there anything more you can say to set up Crucible, or that's about it? It was set up at the end of Odyssey.
Well, he seems very much alone, put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So he's in a quest to maybe perhaps find any humans.
He doesn't know what he's doing. He's wandering.
Yeah.
He's very much, it's a very much Mad Max kind of thing where he's just wandering around. His purpose is kind of disrupted.
Mad Max is a good comparison. I asked him if I could send you guys some pages, but he said nope. So I guess we're tight-lipped on that one for now.
It's all good. We are very excited, as is the Grendel community. Shouts to everyone who's always commenting. And I was trying to look for other questions maybe someone had posed in the comments, but man, they get us when we forget some. We forgot the Hilty from the first Batman was in the second one. You told us, they told us.
Hillary,
yeah.
Hillary Farrington.
Damn.
Yep.
Well, we won't make any more mistakes, man. I promise. Thank you guys so much.
Cred, man. Got to keep your cred rolling.
I know. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being here. It was amazing. Thank you always so much for your support and for coming back on the cast.
Thanks for having us, as always, man. We love coming on chatting with you guys because it's a very friendly environment, that's for sure. So.
Absolutely. We're happy to have you. And until next time, Vivat Grendel and keep on Grendelin.